Welcome back, everybody, to Fire Night 3. First of all, I just wanted to say that, yeah, it's been a very long while since I posted anything, so go ahead and just ignore that. But in the meantime, let's just go ahead and get right to the point. Today, I'm going to try to give everyone here a little list of who I think are going to be your top 10 best picks in the NFL Fantasy League drafts, which, of course, are going to be starting June 11th, if you're not already in one of their leagues. If not, then your earliest you'll probably get will be 12 or 13 if they're not already taken. But most of all, the biggest reason I'm doing this is because since I've been doing this for a few years already, I decided why not give some of the tips that I believe have been helping me so far in getting to the at least podiums of all my fantasy leagues, and that's by presenting them here. So first things first, let's just go ahead and say what's going to qualify as the best running backs that you're going to be able to draft in your fantasy leagues, and why am I going with running backs first? Well, the biggest reason why I'm going with them first is because there are so little amount of dependable running backs for your fantasy leagues that are actually going to be useful for you. So, for basically example, you can go ahead and make the argument that picking up someone by the likes of James White from the Patriots, he's a good pick because he is a great third down back. He could catch in the backfield on screen plays, and he can also run it up the gut, provided that there's enough room and it's only like a 1 yard gain or something like that. Here's the problem. He's not dependent on in every single game. You want someone that is dependent on every single game, and not only just for the quick first down or for quick screen passes like that, someone who's actually able to rush, get yards, and can also double as a quick wide receiver when needed by the quarterback. And on top of that, they're used every single game and can get you points every single game. That is the most important part about it. So, I've compiled a list of 10 of the running backs in the NFL that I believe that if you were to draft them, they would be your best bet at getting the most points that you can get to defeat all of your fantasy opponents. So, let's just go ahead and run down the list. First one up is going to be running back Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. Go ahead and call me a Giants fan. I know, that's why I'm choosing him first. But not only that, did you not see what he did in his rookie year? Saquon Barkley has got to be one of the greatest generational running backs we've seen ever since Ezekiel Elliott came into the league. But in regards to what Saquon can do, if you just see his tape just from last year alone, excluding the exceptional stuff that he did back in Penn State, you'll notice that Saquon can, for a fact, catch in the backfield, catch as a wide receiver, run up the gut, and can actually push defenders out of his way. And his jump cutting skills are so exceptional that he can get yards where there should not be yards to be gained. Saquon is depended on by the Giants so often, and now, especially after trading away Odell Beckham Jr., that's a tear that I just shedded right there. Anyway, so yes, Saquon Barkley is basically now about to become the main focus of our entire offense. Everyone's defense, if they have us on their schedule, Saquon's the first thing they're going to be looking to try to stop. So Saquon is still going to be dependable. I'm not going to say he's going to have as good a year as he did last year. However, he's still going to be a very great prospect for your fantasy leagues, no question. Next up on the list is, and I already mentioned his name, running back Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like exactly giving too much props to our divisional rivals, especially the Cowboys or the Eagles, but you have to admit, Ezekiel Elliott has got to be one of the greatest running backs that we've had in this particular generation. If there is anybody that can be very dependent on for any of your fantasy leagues, it's Ezekiel Elliott. Does he make a lot of catches? I'm not going to say he does. But when it comes to rushing, just get out the way. Ezekiel Elliott is such a focal point of the Dallas offense, and now that they've actually added Amari Cooper with Dak Prescott, who is a good scrambler, just not a good decision maker throwing the ball when he scrambles, but still, you have elements of an offense that's going to be absolutely difficult to figure out. But Ezekiel Elliott is obviously target number one because of his pure rushing speed and power that he has. You just can't stop him, and he is always going to be dependent on. That is Dak's safety net. If all else fails, you give the ball to Ezekiel. And that is why, since he does that just about every single game, you want Ezekiel Elliott on your fantasy league if you can grab him. Your next one to take a look at is going to be, and this is probably going to be a bit of a surprise, is going to be Sony Michel of the New England Patriots. He had a very excellent rookie year, and I mean very excellent. He was actually a rushing back better than James White was because he had the power and the elusiveness to actually make it into either first down territory or into the end zone when need be. But he can also catch the ball. He has very soft hands, which is great for a running back. So you want dual threat and you want to pick someone from the Patriots, I'm going to suggest you to stay away from White and use him only as a backup and go first directly to Sony Michel. A great rookie campaign that he had last year, and he made it obvious why the Patriots picked him in the 2018 NFL Draft. And another thing to keep in mind, that snooze fest of a Super Bowl that we had this year, notice whose name is the only one on the touchdown, the only touchdown of that game. Sony Michel. So I think I've made a pretty good argument for him. If you don't think so, then go ahead and let me know in the comments. Next up, this one's definitely going to be interesting. Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers. The entire Panthers offense is spelled by this guy. Cam Newton, we can't trust that he's going to be back to full form after his second shoulder surgery. And as far as the rest of the offense, well, honestly, losing Devin Funchess was not that big of a loss because he didn't have that much to lose in the first place. Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, and now Chris Hogan, I'm not going to say is a very reliable receiving core. Christian McCaffrey, however, has been one of the most reliable running backs in the league ever since he got drafted by the Panthers. He has been catching just about every touchdown. He has been running in every touchdown that they've gained. Heck, he's thrown a few of them. You want a do-it-all kind of running back, you need to get yourself Christian McCaffrey. And if he's available, if you don't snag him, then you're going to be the big fool. Next up, this is going to be very interesting as well. Undrafted free agent Phillip Lindsay of the Denver Broncos. After seeing what I saw Lindsay was able to do last year, I was like, how did he go undrafted? That guy has some serious wheels. That is someone who can rush it right up the gut so quickly that by the time the DTs actually manage to form the pocket the way they want to close up a gap, Lindsay's already passed. Like, he's already gone. And he's a great receiver too. And the fact that Denver has a very great combo, and this is something else that I want everyone else to keep in mind too. They have a great combo at running back where they depend on their other rookie from last year, Royce Freeman, for the hard-nosed style of running where he will push the defenders in to get all the yards he can get, whereas Lindsay relies on his speed and his receiving. If you're going to choose a running back with a crowded committee, say like the New England Patriots, with James White, Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead, and everyone else there, you're going to want the one that is depended on the most and more consistently. That's why Phillip Lindsay makes this list. He is dependent on very consistently, and he's the one who actually can do more than the other running back, even though the other one is very good at their job too. Next on the list is going to be Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. I mean, do I really have to say much more with Kamara? We've already gotten 2 years of tape of him just absolutely destroying defenses. He can receive. He can rush it up the gut. He has elusiveness. He has cuts. I mean, this guy is just a nightmare for defenses to try to figure out if he's going to be used or not, because the Saints offense has so many other weapons to utilize. If Kamara is not the main focus, then it's got to be somebody else on that team. But Kamara still has to be considered every single time, simply because he is just so amazing with what he can do. With his sideline running, with his elusiveness, his speed, and his soft hands that he can catch any ball that comes his direction. Sorry, you would need Kamara on your team. And the fact that now they don't have Mark Ingram, but they brought in Latavius Murray, that means Kamara is going to be utilized a little bit more, and his dependability may be affected just because of the extra snaps, but I don't think it's going to be too much for someone like him. So Alvin Kamara definitely makes the list for a dual threat running back that can definitely help any fantasy league. So now we go into what I call the questionables, the ones that you would probably question why I'm putting them on the list until you hear me out. So first one is going to be Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. So Nick Chubb was not necessarily utilized at the beginning of the season last year after being drafted in the second round by the Browns. Mostly the snaps were going to Duke Johnson and I forgot who the other running back was that they had, but either way, they tried using them, but then once they brought in Nick Chubb and gave him the starting role, if I'm correct, about week 5, he tore defenses up. He is a running back that you can depend on. He has the necessary speed, and he has that power in order to rush right through any defensive front that comes in front of him. You want someone that's going to get you points because of the yards they can get and the fact that they can be very dependable for touchdown, either rushing in for it or catching them. Nick Chubb is going to be a very, very smart pick for you, especially with the Cleveland Browns offense that's so overloaded that every single defense is going to be distracted one way or another. Like, oh, I need to go ahead and cover Jarvis Landry. Oh, I need to cover Odell. No, wait a minute. I got to cover David Njoku. No, wait. What about Nick Chubb? Wait a minute. What about Duke Johnson? They got so many weapons. But Nick Chubb is the one out of that team you're going to want to pick, without question. So, next one, and I know this one is going to bring up a lot of question marks why I'm even saying his name. LeVeon Bell of the New York Jets. Yeah, he didn't play an entire season last year, all because of the contract issue with the Steelers. Understood. But he is still too good of a running back for anybody to pass, period. I mean, you've seen what he did with the Steelers. And there's also going to be the question of whether he was a product of the Steelers, why he was so great at receiving and running with the ball, or if he is just himself that good of a talent. I'm leaning on the latter, because even though James Conner of the Steelers managed to actually do very, very well, the thing is, yeah, that was part of the Steelers' O-line that allowed him to actually do so good. But Le'Veon Bell, if you actually watch how he plays, all he needs is just a good enough O-line, and he is a threat that all defenses take into consideration no matter what happens. He has great hands, he can rush the ball up the gut, and he's actually in an offensive scheme that can actually help him. Adam Gase as head coach, Sam Darnold as QB that's going to be relying a lot on a running back because he's still kind of in development. You got yourself the recipe of someone who's going to possibly get 1,000 yards rushing and close to 1,000 yards receiving. If not, he will probably hit the 2,000 mark. But then again, that's just my belief. Now, next up is Tarik Cohen of the Chicago Bears. This is who you call a gadget player, someone who can be used in so many different fashions with the way that they scheme things up under head coach Matt Nagy. The Bears' offense is about to become as scary as their defense is, and that's saying a lot. Cohen can rush very quickly with the ball. He's a great receiver, but when it comes to trick plays, Tarik Cohen has got to be every team's focus because you never know what Nagy's going to draw up, and you never know when Cohen decides to think of something or on the spot. Like, for example, throwing a touchdown pass when he knows he's not about to get into the end zone. Cohen is a really great player who can give you points. Mind you, I will admit, there can be games where he may not be 100% dependable simply because the rest of the offense is clicking. But Cohen is still utilized every single game, one way or another. And now that Jordan Howard is no longer on the team, this is going to open him up to way more snaps. You're going to want Cohen this year, for a fact. And now the last person on my current top 10 list of running backs for your NFL fantasy leagues, Damian Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of question marks just went up right now. I can hear it, but hear me out on this one. Did you not notice how well Williams was actually working in the Chiefs' offensive schemes last year, especially in the playoffs? Williams was taking over the missing spot that Kareem Hunt had left. He did really well. And now that they've given him a 2-year extension and he's gotten more acquainted with running with the Chiefs offense under Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes at the helm at quarterback, you have to admit Damian Williams is looking like he's about to become a big star over in Kansas City. And the fact that he's able to catch so well, on top of the fact that he's a great running back, rushing, he's someone that you're going to want, without question. So that's my top 10, but here are some other mentions real quick, and some running backs are probably wondering why I left them out. So probably the first one that everyone's going to think about is I completely left out Todd Gurley of the Los Angeles Rams. Well, the biggest reason why is because, I'm sorry, but there's too many question marks on him as far as his knee, as far as what the team is actually planning on doing with him right now, when it comes to what kind of snaps he's going to see this season. It's too much of a question mark and too much of a precaution that I don't want to add him to the list. I need to see him actually doing well. If I can see snaps that he takes in the preseason and I'm convinced that he's back to form, then I'll re-add him. Another running back that would be very questionable as to why I didn't add them, Leonard Fournette of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Year 1, excellent. I would have recommended him to anybody. Year 2, what a drop. I don't know necessarily what particularly happened. I mean, yeah, there was some injuries here. Then there was the 1-game suspension after the fight with the Bills game. But the games that he was playing, I didn't see him being 100% dependable. But there's also the fact that they were using Blake Bortles at quarterback, which, of course, is the very definition of inconsistent. So now that they have Nick Foles, there is a possibility that Leonard Fournette comes back to form. That's all speculation right now. We can't necessarily guarantee anything. Now, somebody else that I would suggest to keep an eye on after their 8-game suspension is running back Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns. We all saw what he was able to do in the Chiefs system. And yeah, it's really terrible the fact that he ends up being suspended for kicking a woman in a hotel lobby. I can go ahead and understand that 100%. But the fact that the Browns picked him up, I mean, you still can't ignore what he can do on the field. So he is someone that's going to be worth taking a look at. But I would just kind of avoid him for the entire season just because of that. Anyway. And then a few other honorable mentions before I go ahead and close out the video. Kerryon Johnson of the Detroit Lions, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings, and Mark Ingram of the Baltimore Ravens. They can be very good. They cannot be. They're not going to have games where they're going to be 100% relied on. That's what I'm basically saying here. And you're not guaranteed to actually perform at a high enough level. And also you can add Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals on that list too. and Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, he had an absolutely fantastic last bit of the season last year. But here's the thing, that was literally just the last 4 games. We need consistency throughout all 16. So that's why Derrick Henry wasn't on the list either. But anyway, all of that's just my 2 cents for the time being. If you think anything different, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. But in the meantime, this is Friday Night 3 with my NFL Fantasy League Top 10 signing out.